Okay, so the name of this study is The Goodness of Creation, which leads us to contemplate creation. And creation, of course, leads us to the story of Genesis. And the story of Genesis opens up with these words. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was over the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters. And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. And God saw the light was good. Last week, we considered about how as soon as we open up these first words of Genesis, it invites us to consider what God is like. If God is what precedes creation, what is He like? Well, now we're going to turn to consider what creation is. And the first thing that we see in the first couple sentences of Genesis is that creation is good. And that assessment is given by God Himself. And not just once, but a lot. In fact, significantly, 7 times we are told that creation is good, 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 very good. And the Hebrew word for good is tov, and that has a pretty wide range of meanings, just like our word good. Something can be good morally. It can be good in like food tastes good, right? Like that's a different thing than saying she's a good person. You know, that steak is good. There's shades of meaning into what the word good means in English, and that's true with our Hebrew word tov. One of the meanings of tov can refer to beauty. Like when we're told about Rebecca, that she was attractive, tov, in appearance. She looked good. Actually, if you remember, and I'm sure all of you have memorized every sermon I've ever preached, one of the sermons in 1 Samuel, we're told that Saul was a handsome man. It's the word tov. He looks good. And so that means that when God is saying that the world is good that He made, He's not just saying it is functional, as in like, all right, I got the instructions for the IKEA furniture, put it all together, it's good, it's ready to go. Like it's operational. He did not simply set up the world and say it works. He made a moral and aesthetic judgment. This is good. It looks good. It is good. And that's probably expressed most clearly in kind of the hot spot of creation, and that's Eden. And you remember in the Genesis story, the whole world does not look like Eden. God planted a garden called Eden, and then gave the charge to Adam and Eve to take that garden and then to expand its boundaries. Right? They're to cultivate the earth, to subdue it, to take the goodness of Eden, which God gave to them, and then take the rest of the world and make it like that. Well, our word for Eden, get this. Do you know how you say Eden in Hebrew? Eden.
Whoa.
Guys, welcome to Hebrew 101. There you go. What's the word Eden mean in Hebrew? Well, it's a word for pleasure, delights, like they feast on the abundance of your house and you give them drink from the river of your Eden. Delights. And what is Eden? Eden's it's pleasure. It's delightful. And when you read about the description of Eden, you kind of get that sense, right? There's these 4 rivers that flow out of it, which, right, if 4 rivers flow in different directions, that seems to tell us that Eden is kind of like probably on a hill, a high spot of some kind. And we're told that those rivers flow to lands that's full of gold and good things. And in Eden, there's trees planted with all kinds of good food everywhere. It's a beautiful place. It's the land of pleasure and delight. And that's where God puts Adam and Eve there. The world that God makes is beautiful and good. And in fact, we could go a step further. As we even look at the days of creation itself, we can't miss a certain harmony and beauty in the very days. Have you noticed that the first 3 days of creation are days in which God creates spaces or kingdoms? On day 1, he makes light. Day 2, he makes waters and sky. Day 3, he makes dry land. Then on the subsequent 3 days, he fills each of those kingdoms, or puts kings or rulers over each one. So at day 4, even though day 1 he made light, day 4 is when he creates the sun, moon, and stars, the luminaries. He creates the space, and then he fills the space. Same thing with oh, those aren't supposed to say day 2. Oh, wow, I totally goofed this. Yep. So this is day 5. It is the waters in the sky, but it's filled with waters in the sky. This is the birds and the sea creatures. This is day 6, not waters in the sky. This is when he creates animals, and then, of course, man. And this is a term in Hebrew poetry referred to as a chiasm. Right? You see that days 1, 2, and 3 pair up perfectly with days 4, 5, and 6, and which leaves us day 7, which has no parallel. And when you have that in Hebrew poetry, it's trying to emphasize this thing, bam, right in the middle. That's really important, right? Because what's in day 7? The king of all the kingdoms is there in day 7. So everything's beautiful, good. The very literature itself conveying it to us is using a mode of beauty to convey the beauty of what God is making. One book I've been helped a lot with is this short little book by a guy named Steve DeWitt called Enjoying God in Everything. I recommend it to you. It's so wonderful. He says, even God enjoys the created world. He looked at all he made as an artist upon completing a masterpiece and exulted, Tov, beautiful. He didn't merely evaluate the precision of his handiwork. He made an aesthetic assessment of it. So, if that's God's response to the beauty of the world that he creates, that leads us to wonder, what should our response be as we participate in this created world? Now, there's 2 tendencies that human beings have had throughout history, and one is predominant today, and that's the perspective of materialism. And that's the belief that the created world is not created, actually. That the world is essentially matter, bits of matter, carbon. We are just, rocks have smashed against each other for long enough. Ectoplasm has been hit by bolts of lightning long enough that life has emerged. And so, what appears to us to have the presence of a soul, a spirit, a mind, an idea, really has nothing behind it. Everything, all you are is just, chemicals in your brain kind of firing together. In this world, it has the appearance of beauty and design and transcendence, but it does not. At the end of the day, we are just matter in motion. Right? And this is kind of the hardened view of modern scientism. We talked about this in Abolition of Man. Logical positivism would be another view of this. But it's just that the world is material, and there is no spirit. The flip opposite extreme of that would be something called pantheism. And pantheism means that this world is sacred and enchanted, so much so that it actually contains God itself. Right? This is the worldview of Pocahontas. Every rock, every tree has a spirit, has a name. The earth, Gaia, Mother is our, the life force that you and I are all just expressions of. It's a big pool of energy, and you are a dewdrop of the pool. And, materialism emphasizes that there is an ordered regularity to nature that you can arrive at through empirical study. Pantheism recognizes that there seems to be some sort of romantic otherness going on in the world, something that you can't put your finger on exactly, that you can't put in a beaker and boil down and weigh and measure. And in between both of those, we just have Christianity. Right? And Christianity teaches us that there is a creator God who made this created world. The created world is not God. It is creation, yet it is not fundamentally just bits of matter. It is a message. an expression, a communication. Last week we saw in Psalm 19 where the sky proclaims the glory of God. So a message has meaning to it. So the world is not God, but the world is something there to tell you something about God. Right? The book of Romans tells us that we can discern true things about God simply from observing nature. What can be known about God is plain to all mankind because God has shown it to them. For his invisible attributes, namely his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly perceived ever since the creation of the world in the things that have been made. So you should be able to go out to the things that have been made and be able to clearly perceive God's attributes, namely his eternal power and divine nature. And it was reflecting on that idea that made Jonathan Edwards, kind of a big American theologian of the 18th century, have this perspective. He said, "I am not ashamed to own that I believe that the whole universe, heaven and earth, air and seas, and the divine constitution and history of the Holy Scriptures be full of images of divine things, as full as a language is of words, and that the multitudes of those things that I have mentioned are but a very small part of what is really intended to be signified and typified by these things." So Edwards moves, he says, in the history and the writing of the Bible, we find truths and messages that are given to us. Yes, but not only there. Also in the air and seas and heaven and earth, we see images everywhere that's like a language telling us something about God. So, and I like this terminology that there are things that are signified and typified by these things. In the discipline of biblical theology, sometimes there's the word typology or a type that is used. Have you guys ever heard of this idea? Right, like Moses is a type of Christ, or the temple is a type of Christ. It's usually it's a person, an institution, an event, which gives you like a picture of something that's ultimately fulfilled usually in Christ himself, right? So like the temple is this place where you can meet with God, where heaven and earth come together. Jesus is like the truer and better temple, where heaven and earth come together as one. And so a good example of that is the idea of the Exodus. The Exodus is used all throughout the Bible as a type of salvation. God's people could not rescue themselves. They were slaves and they were under the sentence of death, but God sent a deliverer to free them by his grace, deliver them from the bondage of slavery, give them his law, and to lead them to the promised land. And that's essentially the same thing a Christian says. Right? We were slaves to sin under the sentence of death. Through the miraculous intervention of Jesus Christ, we were saved. God gave us his law, made us a people, and we are bound for the promised land of heaven. Right? So the Bible uses the Exodus like that over and over again, these images, these stories and symbols. But and God's telling you something through that. But not only that, he also uses like physical symbols and images, like the Lord's Supper. So think about that. You hold bread, you hold the cup in your hand every Sunday, and Jesus is saying that these physical symbols, one of my favorite books about the Lord's Supper is called Truth You Can Touch. I love that. As you hold them in your hand, as you chew the bread in your mouth, Jesus is trying to teach you something about himself. I am bread. I am the wine. In the same way that you consume that bread, so too I must die, be consumed so that you would be saved. The same way that bread nourishes you, you taste it, you experience it. You must taste and experience me to experience salvation. All right? Physical symbols are invested with a language with a coded meaning and message. But not only that, if you begin to think about it, the Bible is full of an impulse for you to go out into the created world and observe the created world and learn something about God from it. Like, go to the ant, you sluggard. Learn from ants about how you should work hard. Solomon, at some point, sat down and stared at an anthill and thought, wow, that's a great picture of what God wants from us. Look how hard they're working. Jesus looked out at a flower field at one point and thought, you should consider the flowers. Or look at the birds. The created world is telling you something about God. My son, eat honey, for it's good. Know that wisdom is like that. See, your sensory experiences in the world that God has made are not just navigational systems to get you around without bumping into walls. They are there to push truths and messages about God into the five senses that he has given you. What is God like? Well, have you put honey in your mouth? It's like that. C.S. Lewis wrote a little essay called Meditations in a Tool Shed. And he explains how he was standing in a tool shed one day and there was a shaft of light coming through a crack in the tool shed. And because he was in the dark, as he was looking at the shaft of light, it looked like this kind of like beam of light that you could hold. You could see the dust motes, around. He was looking at light. And then he stepped into that shaft of light so that it enveloped his eye. And then suddenly the tool shed disappeared. And he could see a tree and clouds, and above that, the sun. And he distinguished these two modes of looking. You can look at something, like he looked at the beam of light, or you can look along something. Now Lewis was using this to talk about how you can't really understand someone's perspective exclusively from looking at it. There's a benefit to looking along it, and he describes about how he used to look at Christianity prior to being a Christian, and he would judge it and evaluate it. And he realizes now that from the inside, the experience is totally different. But most people have used this analogy to chase after something else, actually. It's not what Lewis intended, and where I'm going to go with this isn't what Lewis intended with this story, but this is what most other people have done, and it's what Lewis does elsewhere, as I'll show you. So John Piper, in his book, When I Don't Desire God, uses that Meditations in a Tool Shed, and he says, this is the essential key to unlocking the proper use of the physical world of sensation for spiritual purposes. All of God's creation becomes a beam to be looked along, not looked at. All our senses become partners with the eyes of the heart in perceiving the glory of God through the physical world. And so you can eat honey and you can just stop there. It's good. This morning I put honey on my yogurt before I came to church. And to be totally transparent with you, I was so tired. I did not have a terribly metaphysical experience as I put the honey on my yogurt. I just ate it, and I was sleepy, and I drove to church. You can do that. Or you can think about, what does the nature of this physical experience qualitatively teach me about what God is like? That's looking along, chasing the sunbeam back up to its source. So Lewis, here's how he picks up the idea. This is from a different book, but he says, earthly pleasures are shafts of the glory, God's glory, as it strikes our sensibility, our senses. I have tried to make every pleasure a channel of adoration. I don't simply mean by giving thanks for it. Right? So you don't eat honey, and you don't do that just by saying, like, God, thank you for the honey today. One must, of course, give thanks, but I mean something different. Gratitude explains very properly, how good of God to give me this. But adoration says, what must be the quality of that being whose far-off and momentary coruscations, like flares and flashes, are like this? One's mind runs back up the sunbeam to the sun. And this is, I think this is really like kind of we're going to go more places in our class, but this is really the heart of what I'm trying to persuade you of. That you have an opportunity in the whole of your created world experience, from lying on a soft pillow at night, taking a hot shower. All of those sensory experiences are not merely things that you thank God for, you should. But the satisfaction of a hot shower itself should be communicating something to you about the satisfaction that God has for you and the quality and nature of his being. Here, let me give you an example from the Bible from this, and it's Psalm 104. And I would encourage you, if you I don't know if you're deep, knuckles deep in a Bible reading plan at this point. I don't know. If not, and you're just looking for something to meditate on Psalm 104 this week. And it's very long, so we're not going to go through all of this, but Psalm 104 is just a hymn celebrating creation itself. And so it starts off with being amazed that God created the mountains, these overwhelming things, and set them in place, and drew a line for how far the sea could go, the immense ocean. And he does things like provide food for donkeys, specifically. He gives wine to gladden the heart of men, and bread to strengthen his soul. He raises up the cedars of Lebanon. He provides food for the storks in their season. Even the rock badgers look to him for help, and the young lion gets his food from God. In the morning, man rises up and goes to his work. And the psalm concludes, may the glory of the Lord endure forever. May the Lord rejoice in his works. God is happy in this world that he has made, in its technicolor, multifaceted, multisensory experience. God is happy in it. And so the psalmist says, I rejoice in the Lord. Again, this is a long psalm. This is the second. It's 35 verses in total. The majority of the psalm is just going through and recounting, God, you made storks and badgers and mountains and hills, and you set up the beams that hold up the sky, and you give rain. And it's just talking about, it's not talking about God directly. It's talking about what God has made. But as he's enjoying what God has made, he concludes, I rejoice in God. You can rejoice in God through enjoying his creation. As Steve DeWitt says, creation speaks to us every day, all the time, constantly shouting truths about spiritual reality. Did you hear it this morning as you got up? Did you feel any truth about God this morning as you took a hot shower? Did you taste any truth as you delighted in your morning coffee? Did you hear any divine reality as you heard a bird singing? Did you see any truth as you saw the blue of the sky? What have you felt, tasted, touched, seen, and heard today? The whole earth is filled with his glory. So John Calvin says it's got to be true, right? There is not an atom of the world in which you cannot behold some brilliant sparks, at least, of his glory. I mean, most of our life, we're in autopilot. Like the way I had my yogurt this morning. I'm busy. God, and I don't have time to, sit and, like weep over my bowl of yogurt and praise God for it. But maybe that says something more about what's wrong with me than about the appropriateness of worshiping God through what I eat. And what did Paul tell us? Whether you eat or drink, whatever you do all to the glory of God. So there should be a way in which I can eat God's food and worship him. And that worship not simply stop at the quick prayer of thanks. God, thank you for this food. Bless it to my body. Whatever that, make this healthy somehow for me. There has to be some way in which we see the glory, glorify God in what you eat and drink. And so that is not less than being grateful, but it is adoring him through the sweetness of a strawberry. There is something about the juiciness and sweetness of a strawberry that is meant to communicate to you the quality of the God who made strawberries. And he didn't just make strawberries. He made everything. Like everything that we enjoy. The comfort and relaxation and exquisite experiences and hard experiences. All of these are meant to be drawing you up so that you chase the sunbeam back up to the sun. So let me go back to, I used this image earlier, but I just was reading this week that, I think last week I shared that story about, that telescope looked at that grain of rice in the sky and it kind of quantified, some like 500 billion galaxies in the known universe. And I was reading something else this week that said, it was trying to quantify the number of stars. And how many stars are there then in the universe? And, it's some number that just boggles the mind. But just to give you a visual representation that still boggles the mind, if we were to take every star in the universe and turn it into a penny, we could stack a stack of pennies up to 110 stories high and cover the continent of North America with the pennies to represent the amount of stars we're estimating in the known universe. Why did God make a world that big? To show you and me, as we behold that grandeur in size, something about him. If he made that, then what is he like? Certainly bigger. If you were to stand before, a stack of pennies, 110 stories high, you would be struck by a kind of awe. Wow. What will it be like then for the day in which you arrive at the source, the epicenter of all those things? I believe that this is the intent of the Bible as we think about the world. Our spirituality is malnourished to the degree that it remains cerebral, disembodied, disconnected. If you tend to think of your Christianity as primarily involving sermons and reading and prayers, all very important things, but has nothing to do with how you eat pumpkin pie on Thanksgiving, then you have a malnourished spirituality. You may not believe in materialism, but you've actually functionally come to adopt materialism in your life. None of you are tempted to pantheism. Probably never have. And that's probably a danger. This world has been so stripped of any kind of enchantment, of any kind of message, that you just kind of view it like just a bunch of ball bearings, lifeless, cold, meaningless matter, there to be used functionally. Not something that has a meaning, a message, a purpose. Paul tells us that by Christ all things were created in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions or rulers or authorities. All things were created through him and for him. All things are for Christ. Similarly, this is how he ends Romans 11. From him, through him, and to him are all things. Steve DeWitt here says that this is like a boomerang. Everything comes from God. He gives it to us. And it exists through his sustaining power. But all things are created for his own sake. So God throws the boomerang of creation out, and that it is to come back to him full of praise. So God made pumpkin pie so that you would eat pumpkin pie and not only thank God for the pumpkin pie, but say, God, this itself is showing me something about what you're like. This is sweet, this is good, this is satisfying. You're sweeter, you're better, you're more satisfying. And it bubbles up in us an opportunity for praise. And because that takes intentional effort, mindful awareness. And there is nothing about our modern life which is going to help you facilitate that. Everything in our life is going to lead us to be optimized and enhanced and efficient, which is going to shut this part of your brain off. Right? You can read the news while you eat your yogurt as you are slipping your no shoelace shoes on so that you can get out of the door that much faster. Right? And you can listen to a podcast on the way to work so you can just keep downloading information, and then you get to work and you can have 6 windows open as you're answering messages and looking up the movie that you're going to watch with your kids later. And then while you watch the movie with your kids later, you're doing your grocery shopping. Right? Being efficient is good. That wasn't a personal shot at anyone. Being efficient and productive is good, but there's the danger. Most of human beings throughout history were tempted to pantheism. I mean, how could you be in this world and not to stand before a cedar tree and not be led to think, man, maybe Thor lives in that tree? We don't feel that way at all. And that's just because the world we live in is just a disenchanted world, right? And so we should be aware of that, and we should be mindful to try to make intentional efforts to push against it. So you do make time to stop and smell the roses. And you just choose to be less efficient. Right? So that you can have this capacity. And I want to end just with thinking about what heaven will be like. Simone Weil, an interesting person. I'm not entirely sure. She's really hard to pin down. I believe she was a Christian, but I'm honestly not sure because she says pretty contradictory things. But regardless, this is a really good line from her about the experience of beauty. She says that a beautiful thing involves no good except itself, in its totality as it appears to us. We are drawn towards it without knowing what to ask of it. It offers us its own existence. We do not desire anything else. We possess it, and yet we still desire something. We do not in the least know what it is. We want to get behind beauty. It is a sphinx, an enigma, a mystery which is painfully tantalizing. We should like to feed upon it, but it is merely something to look at. It appears only from a certain distance. The great trouble in human life is that looking and eating are 2 different operations. Only beyond the sky, in the country inhabited by God, are they one and the same operation. I have not found a better explanation than that. Just personalize this. What's a beautiful experience for you? It could be a memory. Maybe if you're feeling very highbrow, it could be some sort of piece of art of some kind, or it just could be the time with your family. That vacation that you took, or that one meal that was just so good. Whatever it is, there's something about that moment where you love it. It's wonderful. Yet there's this element that you want more than just that. And you also know that this is going to go away at some point. The meal will be finished. You got to go see another part of the museum. The vacation comes to an end. And you've been so grateful, you love it, but there's been something that you haven't had yet in it. And you want more. That's what she says, looking and eating are different. Like that's what we want to get behind the beauty. We want to eat it. But if we eat it, I can't look at it. It goes away. But in the realm where God is, when we get to the source, we will feast on beauty, and it will not extinguish it. We will drink of the river of delights, and it will satisfy us without us needing to be bored with what we're drinking. It will fill us with more desire, but the desire will not be a desire that is unmet. Lewis says it best in his essay, The Weight of Glory. He says, right now, we are on the outside of the world, the wrong side of the door. We discern the freshness and purity of morning, but they do not make us fresh and pure. We cannot mingle with the splendors we see. And like you look at a sunset, a glorious sunset, and you want to go there. You want to be in that sunset, but you're just an observer. Right? Like you've caught, the curtain of the dark world has parted for a second, and light has shone through, and you want to get behind that curtain. You want to be where the glory is, but we can't mingle with the splendors we see. But all the leaves of the New Testament are rustling with the rumor that it will not always be so. Someday, God willing, we shall get in. And that's what heaven is. The strawberry is wonderful here, but that's just the faint, far-off echoes. All right, that's it. That's all I got. I want you guys to be Christians as you think about how to interact with this created world. There's so much joy to be had in it. It's a far better way to live than to be functional materialists. And so just practically, I think food is one of the easiest ways to start, because it's one of the most visceral sensory experiences right away, right? So, as you go to lunch today, just try to think about that. You don't need to be weird about it, but maybe try to be weirder than you normally would be. Maybe the problem with us is that we're afraid of being kind of weird, like hippies or new agey spiritualists who, think that this sandwich has the spirit of something in it. Like, okay, you're probably not tempted to that, but God did give you that for a purpose, to show you something of himself. Okay, any questions? We have a few minutes.
Or how do we think about the things that are mediated by human creation? So the natural world obviously is like God made those things, but like movie or
that's
technology, whatever.
That's going to be the next class is going to be on culture. That's going to be the whole point, right? Like that's I intentionally limited it to just the created, like nature. The Genesis, after you see that God made everything good. Look at Eden; it's beautiful. Everything's good. He turns to Adam and Eve and says, "Be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and subdue it." That's historically known as the cultural mandate. Right? Like go and create human society. And so I think enjoying human created beauty it's like eating a strawberry, but double fold. Right? Not only do I get to enjoy the good as an immediate experience, I then get the extra quality of knowing a human being made this, and that human being bears God's image. And so, and nothing else. We're not told that strawberries bear God's image. Humans bear God's image. So if I'm trying to enjoy this world around me and everything that's good about it so that I enjoy God, the easiest things then for me to do that should be taking in human culture. Art, dance, music, technology. I should be able to participate in all of those and see so clearly. Like God's an author. I'm reading this story by an author. Oh my gosh, yeah, I see the connections. So that's hopefully where we'll go with our next one.
I have kind of a dumb question, but
No such thing as a dumb question.
This legitimately might be, but God is omnipresent. We know that.
Mm-hmm.
But I sometimes do get confused with the terminology that you were describing, like from Pocahontas.
Pantheism.
Yeah, like God is everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And God, is he in my strawberry? You said no, but God is everywhere. And
Yeah, that's not a dumb question at all. That's a fantastic question. Right, so pantheism says that God is contained in this world. Like he is here. This is a part of God. Right? When we say that God is omnipresent, God is present in this whole world, not because he's contained in this creation, but because he is fundamentally outside of this creation. So God relates to this created world the way that an author would relate to their story. Like there's a way in which Shakespeare is everywhere in Hamlet. Right? Like his fingerprints are all over the place. He is there. There's at no point, if you could hypothetically enter into the literary world of Hamlet and ask the characters, like interact with them, like you would be in the mind of Shakespeare. And so you are inside the author. The created world is a world that God has created. And so this is a technically false statement, because when we say God is omnipresent, what we really mean is that God is not limited by physical boundaries. God creates time and space. Therefore, he exists outside of time and space. But that sentence is actually false because I'm using the word outside to describe God. But it's like saying God existed before the foundations of the world. That doesn't make sense, because before is a chronological time marker. But that's where we're just at the limits of we can't conceptualize anything else. So God exists outside of this created time-space continuum, but he is not outside in the way that like someone in the attic is outside of the people who live in the basement. Right? Like that's not how God's spatial reasoning works. It's more like, and again, this is an imperfect analogy, but more like the way an author relates to the story. The story is in the mind of the author. So that's why the psalmist in Psalm 139 can say, where can I go from you? I can go anywhere. I can go to Sheol. I can go to the very gates of hell, and you're there. Right? This whole world, even the spiritual world, God has created all of it. And so he is here, but he's not here in the way that pantheism says the world is God. Right? Like he is limited in a sense. And ironically, it's putting a restriction upon God. He is found here in this part of this desk. Like this is God. That's pantheism. You could, maybe an analogy would be like the way that heat can suffuse the presence of a metal bar when it's thrust into the fire. The fire is in the bar in a sense, but the bar is not the whole of the fire. It is because the bar is thrust into the fire, the heat can transfer to it. And in that sense, the fire is all through the bar. Yet you pull the bar out, the fire still exists. In pantheism, this world is all that there is, therefore God is locked in and contained in this world. We're saying the exact opposite. God exists outside of this world. And so he's not limited and bound by this.
It kind of seems like everything we're talking about is like about seeing God in creation is like an appetite that needs to be cultivated a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Like we all have some tendency where like I'd rather spend 20 minutes doom scrolling than like looking at nature around me, right?
Mm.
And so do you have like practical ways for cultivating that appetite, especially in ways that like you should, but you maybe don't? Like maybe I know I should go look at the autumn leaves, but I hate being outside where it's
Yeah.
like I know I should read a book now and then, but I hate reading. Like what's an approachable way to start?
Well, the next class that I'm going to teach is I don't want to make this sound like I'm like a environmentalist who says the only way that you can experience God is by walking out and looking at autumn leaves. I think
So you probably do have like facets of all those things that we should appreciate some, right? Or that like
right.
we would have more enjoyment of God if we cultivated. So like what's a nature for dummies for someone that doesn't on appreciating God.
Yeah.
You said choose to be less efficient is one thing you said.
Well, yeah, I think efficiency, the heartbeat of idolatry is taking any part of creation and ignoring the creator through it. Right? So I interact with, whether it's my smartphone or it's the tree outside, I interact with them in such a way that the creator is not present anymore. That's the essence of idolatry. And so we can be idolatrous about our phones when I interact with my phone in such a way that God is not present in what I am doing. I don't think about him at all. And that's, that is, I think that is easier to do with technology than it is to do with the tree in my yard. Because technology is it's frankly just easier for me to be warped into that kind of deadened mindset. But I don't think it's inherently necessary. I think it is, all technology, all culture has, Satan can't create, only God can, and so everything that God created is good and should be received with thanksgiving and joy, including things like phones. But I think because we live in the time we live in, where the omnipresent temptation for all of us is probably to doom scroll and ignore God, I think it's probably good for us to slide a weight over onto how do I keep that particular cultural expression maybe like pretty hampered down so that I can be more aware of this. And I think like being outside touching grass is a pretty good thing to do, and to just try to do that. I mean, it is amazing how restorative like going on a walk is outside. I really do. I don't think there's a simple hack to this. I think it is.
Could I put in a request for a future class of because I mean this on a much lighter note, just ideas, what can we do? Maybe here's some examples. I'm never going to read The Brothers Karamazov, but maybe you could give me here's some children's books that are good for all people. And I could probably read one of those.
So here's a very simple one I can give you right now.
But I mean for all categories.
Clyde Kilby says once a day you should stare at a tree. He says, one day I will stare at a tree. I shall not ask what it is, but I shall be glad that it is.
I was thinking about the Simone Weil quote. There does seem to be something about even if I see a sunset, that can be dissatisfying in the sense that I
can't eat it.
Can't look at it enough.
Yeah.
It's pretty, and so there's something in me that just sort of says okay, that was cool to look at. I'm going to go on and do something else. Do you think there's something in the fact that we are not consummating that in this sort of connection to to the adoration of God? That kind of leads to that sort of we are doom scrolling because we're looking for that sort of completion, but we never get it, so we just keep going to the next thing.
Oh, yeah. If I participate in that, which draws me in, like a sunset or maybe something on my phone, but I don't have that this is meant to lead me to my creator. Yeah. It can lead me to just do the next thing, and there's nothing better at doing that than my phone, which I can, I can see every sunset in the world. I can.
So that might be just a practical thing that goes for when we find ourselves dissatisfied in whatever, stop and enjoy something. And do that, close that loop of.
Yeah. This is, we're going to turn a lot more to Lewis's advice in The Weight of Glory, but that, he encourages to cultivate that kind of, he calls it a painful longing, almost. A painful longing that fills you with joy. That desire, I want to eat that beauty. I want the thing that is somehow beyond my reach, and the fact that it is beyond my reach makes me crave it even more. And he thinks we should try to cultivate that.
What I'm seeing right now, the Grand Canyon, the ocean, the galaxies. I'll never get to experience that to some degree, but on my phone I can. So when I'm looking for beautiful things, whether it's staring into a tree, whether it's the laughter of a kid, mother and father joy, whatever it is, it's easy to get from this.
Mm-hmm.
Where I can have that at home too, but then when I want more of it, it's what do I go to?
Yeah, well, you know what? We should think more, because that is, in a way, right? I don't know, is this showing, I don't know if this is showing stuff right now, but it would seem like our technology should give us, like we should be the happiest people in the world who are the most satisfied in God, because most people who have been alive have not been able to travel anywhere, right? Like you lived within, like a couple square miles of where you were born. And you didn't see all of these different things. I just, like all the pictures I just showed you, I just, flipped through them. Like, that took me a few minutes to find those pictures. And we all just got to see stuff that we would never normally see. Like, so shouldn't we all just be so happy, just rapturously worshiping God all the time? But we're not. Right? It's like, so I think that would be worthwhile for us. How do we participate in the technology that we have been given in a way that should actually deepen and enhance our joy, not diminish it? Because it seems, just personally, it seems to diminish it more often than it does enhance it for me.
To use Todd's example of the sunset, is there a moral imperative that we have as Christians to like look at a sunset, chase the sunbeam, right, back up to the Creator, or is chasing after beauty like a good thing that accentuates our worship and enjoyment of God, but isn't strictly a matter of disobedience or obedience? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. And if this doesn't sound like I'm picking up what you're putting down, stop me and correct me. Okay, well, I'll just read it. Philippians 4:8. Finally, brothers, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, that's the word for beautiful. Whatever is commendable, if there's any excellence, if there's anything worthy of praise, think about these things. We are commanded to think about what is good, pure, respectable, beautiful. What's worthy of praise? We are commanded. You should think about that. We're commanded to glorify God. And I think that means more than just be thankful. But if the essence of what you're saying, though, is like, does that mean that we all need to have a kind of like poet's eye to, I mean, I don't think so, but...
Is a person who doesn't cultivate that malnourished?
Yes, I think so. I think that 1/3 of the Bible is poetry for a reason. And you could be like, I don't like poetry. Most people say that. Well, one simple answer is like, well, too bad. God has determined to speak this way. You must listen to him. Like, again, there's freedom in like different iterations. You don't need to read William Blake. You don't need to necessarily do that. But with who you are and the interests and talents and times and opportunities you have, you should cultivate a desire for appreciating and enjoying beauty. I do think that is a moral imperative of all Christians. And that may look very different for different people. That may look like you go to Hobby Lobby and get a live, laugh, love quote you put on your wall because it really actually helps you lift your frame of mind to a certain place. Like it looks different for different people. All right, we're out of time. Good questions, guys. Let me pray. Father, we love you. Thank you for this day. Father, we do pray that you would cultivate hearts of beauty. That, Father, the world wants to deaden this in us. It wants us to use the good gifts that you have given us from the gifts of nature and food, culture and technology, and of course one another, and not enjoy you through it, not worship you through it, but to just terminate everything back in on ourselves. And so, Father, forgive us for how we have misused your gifts and we have spurned your generosity. Father, we pray that you would make us people who are so committed to joy that we would honor you through how serious we are about cultivating pleasure in our life. And we would chase every sunbeam back up to you. Help us do that, even as we now gather for church. In Jesus' name, amen.